Alright, I'm back, and this is my follow-up video on the 13 Pro Max after using it for a little over 2 weeks. So this won't really be a review focusing on specs and things like that. It's more so my observations and things that I've noticed that Apple have changed upgrading from the 12 Pro Max. So let's start with the design and handling, because with the design, not too much has changed from the previous generation. The phones have gotten slightly thicker, all the 13s, and also slightly heavier. The camera module, of course, the cluster of lenses over here, has gotten pretty massive, especially on the 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max. And it's so big that it kind of makes all the previous iPhone camera lenses look small in comparison. Up front, there's some other small changes. The Face ID notch has gotten a little bit smaller, about 20% according to Apple, and the earpiece has moved up to the top edge. And I think that's about it for the physical changes, but overall I would say that all of these things together are kind of nice refinements and hasn't really changed my experience coming from the 12 Pro Max. I haven't noticed the increase in the weight, and the much larger camera sensor doesn't also get in the way of handling the phone and putting it in my pocket or anything like that. And so too with the notch up front. Really, I didn't have a problem with the notch in general, the way it is with the previous generations. And the slightly smaller notch is not something that I've noticed in day-to-day use. But I do want to kind of take a moment just to appreciate the design in general, because if you ask me, I think that this 13 Pro in graphite and the 12 Pro before it are kind of my favorite designed iPhones ever. The graphite color is really stealthy and sleek, with a little bit of shine and pop with the stainless steel edges, and it really reminds me of kind of a refined, expensive, and more elegant, modern take on the iPhone 5S design, which was also one of my favorite designs ever. So the phone is gorgeous. I mean, we have to kind of remind ourselves that these are mass market devices that are like made in the millions, and my unit is kind of perfect. There's no odd seam out of place. It's a real dense, confident feeling phone. And like I said, I think it's one of the best designed phones ever. I wanted to touch on the size and handling of the 12 Pro Max also. Like I said, the increased weight hasn't really been a factor for me compared to the 12 Pro. If you're used to a Max size, I think you'll pretty quickly get used to the added heft of this. It's barely perceptible, only like when I compared the two side by side. And I gotta say that the Max size in general has really grown on me. Last year, Apple kind of switched things up and made the decision on what phone to upgrade difficult for me, because I previously really liked the 5.8-inch 11 Pro size. I think that was the ideal size to use one-handed and maximize screen real estate. But of course, Apple now has the mini, and the regular 13 and 13 Pro have bumped up to 6.1-inch size. And kind of counterintuitively, I prefer the Max size now to those middle 6.1-inch sizes. I just think those sizes are kind of in a no man's land for me, where they're just a little too big to be comfortable to use one-handed. So if you ask me if it's already going to be uncomfortable to use one-handed, you may as well go just a little bit bigger and get the added benefit of having the much better battery life and the much larger screen of the 13 Pro Max. So with that out of the way, what are kind of the things that I have noticed after 2 weeks of use as tangible differences from the 12 Pro Max? The first thing, of course, is the increased battery life. So that added, slight increase in thickness and weight was to accommodate a larger battery cell. And this year, all the 13s have gotten increased battery sizes, but the 13 Pro Max in particular got the largest battery increase relative to its previous generation. So the 12 Pro Max already had fantastic battery life, and the 13 Pro Max continues that. So I use, I would say maybe in the last 2 weeks on average, I've been using the phone a lot. There's a new gadget shine on it, probably averaging about 6 to 6.5 hours screen on time, and ending the day with maybe a little less than 50%, around maybe 40, 40 to 50%. To me, that's amazing. You know, I had one weekend of much more heavy use where we were doing a lot of hiking and taking photos and videos. And even then, using constant navigation all through the morning, tons of photos, tons of videos, I probably ended the day, I did get into the red, but I still had maybe 15 to 20% battery life at the end of a long day of use. So I think that's tremendous. You know, the only kind of caveat I'll say is that if you're already used to the Pro size, for me, my charging habits really haven't changed in the last 2 weeks. So even though I do end the day with 40, 50% and could easily get through the following workday, I still generally charge it at night. So the improved battery is definitely a convenience, and I love that it's here. You know, it's a phone, like I said, that you can use all day. And most importantly, it's a tangible improvement that every single user across the board can appreciate, whether you're a light user or a heavy user. So that has been a fantastic improvement. The next thing, of course, is that beautiful ProMotion display. Now, when I first unboxed the phone and swiped around, my first impression was, oh wow, that's nice. And it really is. The animations are very smooth. Now, when I look at a 60 hertz screen, you know, when I was looking at comparing it to my 12 Pro Max, and my wife has a 12 Pro, the 60 hertz just looks a little jittery, especially like swiping around. So it's definitely a beautiful, beautiful upgrade. And the display, you know, is like the portal to everything you do on the device. So any improvement is always appreciated because it's going to affect everything that you do. This year on my 13 Pro Max, I also noticed that my panel is a cooler shift, a cooler tone in the whites, which I really appreciate. You know, I don't have the 12 Pro anymore to compare it to, the 12 Pro Max, but the 12 Pro Max kind of had a slight yellowish tint, which you get used to over time. You know, it's kind of there when you first look at it, but compared to that phone, this screen has an improved color panel, in my opinion, and the display is beautiful to look at. You know, the one caveat with the display that I'll add is that, you know, it's also a feature that your eyes kind of get used to because for me, especially with my use case, I'm mostly using my phone to look at static screens, you know, whether I'm reading a Kindle book or scrolling through a web page or social media. So the smoothness is there in the animations, but once you're done looking at that animation and you're just using the phone, there's not too much different from previous devices. But, you know, like I said, the display really is one of the important things to me, and this new display and the ProMotion higher refresh rate screen is beautiful. And the last thing that I'll kind of mention as a great pro, of course, is the new camera system. So like I mentioned, the 13 Pros now have better lenses, larger sensors across the board on the ultra wide, the wide, and the telephoto lens compared to the 13 series. So that made the decision to get the Pro this year much easier than last year, and the cameras are really fantastic. Now, as is typical in good outdoor lighting, you won't really notice too much of a difference from the previous generation. I haven't really, but in kind of like indoor lighting situations, the contrast is better. You know, you can play around with the photographic styles. So I set my style to bump up a little bit in the warmth and reduce the tone a little. And I think especially right now in the fall with the fall colors, that's produced some really vibrant, beautiful, colorful images. And I've noticed also that in low light settings, the shutter is faster to shoot. You don't have to be in night mode and hold the phone steady for too long. So you get really good indoor shots. So that's been really nice. And this year, of course, Apple has on the Pro lines has also added autofocus to the ultra wide lens, and that introduces macro mode, which is a really fun addition. It's really fun to kind of pop open the camera, switch it into the macro mode, and, you know, kind of just see what kind of shots you can get. It opens up new creative possibilities. And I've always, you know, kind of leaned towards the Pro lines because I like the variety of lenses. It's really convenient. I'm in the habit of, you know, whenever I'm about to shoot a photo, taking it out, seeing what the framing looks like on the 1X, clicking the 0.5 to see how it looks ultra wide, and then clicking the telephoto to see how that changes my framing and composition. And that's just really convenient to have. And now with the macro mode, it's almost like you have 4 lenses in your pocket. And those are kind of the changes that I've noticed. There's also cinematic mode, which is kind of like a portrait mode for video. I haven't had too much too much of a chance to play with that. But I will say that it's a really nice kind of party trick. All my family, when they saw what the videos look like, that you can get that, cinematic kind of background blur, they're very impressed. And all of them, actually, from seeing the photos and the videos that can be produced on the 13 Pro, all want to upgrade from their 12 Pro. So it's been really nice having. The one thing I will say is that, obviously if you look closely in cinematic mode videos, you can see that it is an artificial blur, so it's not going to reproduce, optical blur. But it's still a really fun feature to have if you want any kind of projects where you can direct someone and say, okay, I want this person here, you can look over there, for any kind of film projects and stuff. It'll be a good, again, a good versatile tool to have. So the cameras have been fantastic. And with that, I just also wanted to take a moment to appreciate what we have here with the cameras and this phone in general. Like I mentioned, there's a new macro mode that works in video too, by the way. There's slow motion, cinematic mode, 3 different camera lenses so you can get all different kinds of viewpoints. There's just so much variety. This is an amazing tool. And on top of that, the software is also reliable. It opens up quickly. I don't really have it hang or anything like that. It's quick to shoot. It shoots photos and videos almost as fast as you can press the shutter button. So it's really an amazing tool to have. And for some reason, this has probably been true for a few generations of phones now. But for some reason, as I was using the 13 Pro Max, it really reminded me that the limitation to produce like beautiful images and cinematic videos is not the tool or the gadget that I have at my disposal. It's the real limitation, especially now, is just my own creativity and vision. So it's really amazing to have that tool available all the time in your pocket. So I think that's about it for my experience. Have I noticed any cons, after 2 weeks of use? Not really, if I'm being honest. I mean, if we can get the battery life and all the camera features and everything in a slightly lighter phone that would be easier to handle, sure, I'd take that. But I'm happy with the trade-off of the size and weight for, that beautiful screen and the better cameras and battery life. And I guess the only other thing I could say is that it could be a little bit cheaper because, man, this phone really is expensive. But yeah, I mean, it's been really an amazing experience overall in the 2 weeks that I've had it. And, unlike last year where I was kind of doubting my decisions with the 12 Pro or the Mini, and then finally ended up on the 12 Pro Max. This year, I'm very happy with the 13 Pro Max. I do think it's the best phone in Apple's lineup, and obviously, of course, the best phone that Apple has used. But also, I feel good using this phone, and I'm really happy with it. So, if you are due for an upgrade and you can afford it, I think it's a great phone and can highly recommend it. And I think that's about it. I mean, before I wrap up, I guess, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's other minor changes. To me, minor, like increase extra GPU core, the CPU is a little bit faster, little things like that, little refinements, but those aren't things that I've noticed really a tangible experience, a tangible difference using it. A lot of the reviews online are calling this the perfect S device, and this is more a 12S rather than a true number upgrade. But I think that kind of misses the point because for me, yes, it is, physically kind of the same as as last year's device, but Apple has improved in all the areas that I think matter to most people, like the ones that I listed, the battery life, the screen, and the camera. And to me, that's wonderful. So highly recommended. And I think that's it. Hope that helps some of you out there, and thanks for watching.